Welcome to another episode of Behind the Shield. I'm Jason Shropshire.
And I'm Gary Daemer.
Hey, Gary. Good to be on again. It's been a minute.
It has been a minute since the first episode. I really have enjoyed pulling some of these together so far.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We've had some guests so far. We've had it's a lot of internal introductions.
We have.
And we're going to get to the meat of a lot of topics here.
And especially for this one, to me, you tell me, but the real reason why we started doing these was because of the fact that we have such intense conversations on our leads conversations every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and that's what really led to this.
First we started with doing AI transcription, right?
Yep.
How can we take a transcript of a great conversation and turn it into a blog,
Right?
And then that led to we should record everything. Let's transcribe everything.
Exactly.
Transcribe all the things.
Yeah, and then we thought we would try to record some of our leads calls, but it just never occurred. And but what we started doing is getting ideas from them, and then maybe diving a little deeper into them. And me, I watch a lot of YouTube. I'm kind of addicted to it a little bit. I can't stop the.
It's the good stuff though. It's not the stuff my kids watch. Thankfully,
sometimes you should see some of the stuff I watch, but for the most part, I do watch some really cool and interesting things. And over the weekend, I was watching this really cool 5-minute video, and it was about the Ottoman Empire and Constantinople, if I can say that correctly. I'm going to try to say it 3 or 4 times, and I'm going to say it differently each time, so get used to that, right? So. And it really started out with the walls of Constantinople held for 1,000 years, and it wasn't until gunpowder come into place that allowed the Ottomans to take over Constantinople, and today it's now known as
Istanbul.
Istanbul. There you go. That's what I'm correct.
Not Constantinople.
Not Constantinople, but it was because they failed to recognize an innovation. And they fail to recognize, that capability of, wow, that gunpowder and those big weighted balls can bust through our walls. But they really thought they had themselves, spot on.
And legend was that those walls had held for thousands of years.
Yeah, they're 18.
So it's
18 foot thick. They're
when you've been as invincible as anyone can remember, and past when all of your distant relatives could remember,
right?
It feels like it's going to go on forever.
Correct. And I mean, and they sat there and they waited and waited, and they took the status quo and said, hey, this is we're cool with that, right? And the first thing that came to my mind was, wow, this is kind of where we're at right now with compliance, and this is where we're at with cybersecurity. We've been doing this. I mean, you and I have been doing this for 18 years here at InfusionPoints. But, in the cloud world, we've been doing it for about 11, 12 years. And we've kind of been building on the same kinds of things over and over again. And we'll build a control, or build a solution that solves a control. We build these things based off of themes, and then we, go through the audits, and we have to, show each of the configurations, and then they take screen captures of those, and then they store them in probably, some place. And they review our documentation. They give us a review on that. That 8 weeks later, we get a report back, and that report says these are all the things you need to fix, or these are all the findings, or these are none of the findings, right? And it just takes too long, In the modern world that we live in today, like if you remember, we talked about load balancers a while back, where you can launch one of those in 5 minutes. We should be able to do the same thing with compliance and cybersecurity, right? We should be able to look at it as fast as you can. Doing it live, right? So be able to look at that whole idea of
it definitely can't be something. It can continue to be something that you expect to be reviewed annually, or only looked at annually. It's like, well, what about the rest of the time in between? You gotta be looking at this stuff continuously, right? And a few of the pressures that I think that are going on right now, right? I mean, part of it's just technology and pace of innovation.
Yes.
With what's going on, but like, think about it, Gary. We've been doing cyber. I mean, I've been doing cyber 20 years. You've been doing it longer.
40.
Yeah, and it's like, with all the focus on technology and all the different providers, all the different solutions out there that are coming out, and have come out, and all the billions of dollars being spent on cyber, we're still having massive breaches.
Right.
And it looks like continued failure in that space, and it's like, what are we doing wrong, and why shouldn't we flip the table with status quo, right?
Correct.
So I think, well, as well as compliance, right? Because compliance, the whole idea is like ensuring that security is being done.
Correct.
But you can do these exercises, you can do these audits, and you could still have massive breaches in those environments, and we've seen that over and over and over.
Right.
So,
Right. And that's why we really need to go away from the point in time and then really stop designing, for compliance and design for cybersecurity, and think about, how do you secure that specific thing, whether it's boundary protection or it's logging or it's public key infrastructure, identity management, whatever that is. Let's make sure that we provide the right security mechanisms in place to be able to keep yourself secure. And that's why I tell you, when I first saw and heard, the whole FedRAMP 20X perspective, I was a bit blown away by, wow, this is really cool. I think we could do this pretty rapidly. And the reason why I think we could do it pretty rapidly is because we have two good service offerings around our XccelerATOr platforms, which is we build solutions for our customers, and then we have our multi-tenant system with XPU 40, which is built to meet basically FedRAMP High, IL5 type requirements, and so is the accelerators, depending on the tools that we put in place to be able to cover that.
Well, and in our experience too, we've been doing these audits for years, right? And we've been looking at ways to optimize that and add value for our customers. So we're already looking at generating audit evidence automatically, and all the foundational things that 20X wanted to do, right? We're like 85% of the way there, or maybe more. So all we have to do is figure out, okay, 20X wants it to look this way, and finish those last mile things, right, and adapt what we've done for Rev 5 agency path and DoD and these other frameworks, just adapt those rapidly to 20X.
Right. And I think that's probably the largest challenge that we've had, right, is really because we've designed this thing to really be focused on Rev 5, right? And so we had to do the conversion from the Rev 5 moderate or high requirements, or the overlay from DISA as well. So we've had to change that into the KSIs. But here again, just as long as you knew how to map those into those requirements, it shouldn't, and not that hard for us to kind of make it into that path. But at the same time, think about this. So this is why I think the platform management aspects are some of the most important pieces. But think about this. If you build a solution and you put a tool on top of that, it's going to be looking at just that solution. If you have another solution with another customer, how's it going to find that stuff? How's it going to know, what's secure and what's not secure in those environments? And I see that as a challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is an area I've thought a lot about, and I've kind of watched the approach for other frameworks that are, I would consider, more commercial oriented, and intended to kind of be a baseline security compliance framework that you're meeting to meet third-party risk management checklists and stuff like that. So you look at those approaches and GRC companies that are doing that, right? And typically there's like an intake process. They want to know like what tools you use and things like that. But how deeply it can get into, okay, it's great that you got these things and you've invested in those things, but like how well are you truly using them? Like what do the actual metrics look like around that? And that's where I I'm not seeing the ability to kind of get as deep as what platform can do, right? So with platform, where we're taking, and instead of trying to kind of adapt to the way that any particular customer does things and the tools that they bring, and sort of their roles and stuff like that, instead of trying to adapt a story around that, right, to take to whatever compliance audit that you want to go through, we're throwing that off and saying, okay, we're going to be real prescriptive about it.
Right.
Like we're going to, using all of our experience with this, we know the tools that work best. We know the ones that add the most value as well, right? So we draw sort of that line between value and functionality, and we're like, and we can make up the rest with cloud native. We try to use cloud native as much as we can, right?
Right.
Because customers find that helps them scale. It helps them like realize value from the tools as they scale and as they get revenue back from building these environments and taking them, to market. So it's like, ultimately, platform helps us build controls all the way out, understand how they work, and then the story flows out of that.
Correct.
Instead of it feels like you're driving it the other way around with the sort of the GRC only approach.
Right. Well, that if you think about this too, Jason, I mean, I know we help a lot of customers kind of build, FedRAMP into their solutions as well. I mean, and they take longer, and they take a little bit more effort to get those done, to get the stories aligned with the controls within FedRAMP. I feel like it's fairly similar type of concept, right? So if you go layer a tool on top of that, you're still going to have to figure out how to do those customizations, per instance that you're working in, or per solution that you're working in. Now we're still going to have to do some of that because every application isn't the same, but the underlying infrastructure, you can get a lot of the way there because the underlying infrastructure is built fit for purpose. And I think that is one of the keys. I think we see the same thing, as you really begin to drive out the overall solution. And it makes it much easier to integrate applications, into play when you have, the same type CI/CD pipelines, when you have the same type of data flow into it. Is it a Kubernetes cluster? Is it a serverless type application? Is it a tier 3 type application? Those are always inconsistent, right?
Right.
But they do have consistent patterns.
Yeah.
And you can recognize those patterns. And, I think that's one of the reasons and what really pushed us to have this conversation today, because I think you and I had an epiphany kind of over this week, I think it was, about, CI/CD pipelines and, your thought process on that. So maybe you could expand on how does CI/CD pipelines map to what we're doing today? Right?
Well, yeah. I mean, so I had an opportunity a while back to, the engineering team was slap full of work and busy, and turns out I have an engineering background.
No way.
So I'm like, shucks, I guess I'm going to have to suck it up and do this work. And that led me, I've been in and around teams using Jenkins for years. And suddenly they're like, hey, we want you to use Jenkins to run web scans, right? So, I've known about Jenkins. I've heard about Jenkins. I've heard about pipelines for a long time. I haven't really dove into it. Haven't done any Groovy or anything like that. And this was my chance to sort of get into that, right? So part of what, I had the ability to do was kind of look at, well, there's a lot of other teams, SRE teams that are here, and all their repos are here because I've got, access to that. And I could see different ways that those teams had used Jenkins and built pipelines in it. And I guess going, superficially, not thinking deeply about Jenkins for a long time. Like I always thought of it as I bet you go in and there's some really prescriptive ways to do CI/CD in this tool, right? But, getting into it and seeing it, I'm like, not so much.
Right.
This is really giving you sort of a canvas, and now you have a whole language called Groovy around writing pipelines, and then pipelines that could do, anything that you can imagine, from deploying across multiple environments, building code, testing it, deploying it, and then staging it across environments so that, if anything fails, it stops. To running SRE runbooks. It can do any of those things. It could run remediation runbooks for a SOC.
Right.
Anything you can imagine can be done. So I'm like, you know what? Given everything that I know about security tooling, like I should have known better.
Right.
I should, because being
You
around.
mean there's no magic bullet? Is that what
No. No, and with any tool, there's ways to use them well, right? Use to get the most out of them and the most value out of them. And then there's what we see, we've seen plenty of customers try to do best of breed for FedRAMP, right? I'm going to get the biggest and best everything, and the biggest SIM, and 2 years down the road, you look back at it and okay, the SIM is sort of deployed. I'm not sure anyone's looking at it, or they only look at it when certain alerts go out. And it's like, for the investment, are they getting the full value out of all these best of breed things, and then trying to pull a team together to manage all that, right?
Right.
So seeing that struggle, it's like, well, why don't we build a team around tooling that we've chosen, and in a very opinionated, well architected approach around AWS, right? Train a team around those tools, and then take those tools repetitively to multiple customers, right? So that they can get the benefit of our scale,
Right.
and the benefit of a fit for purpose team that knows this stuff and lives it every day,
Right.
instead of each team independently out there trying to do it on their own.
Correct.
It's been a big hit. We started doing this with our first platform called XccelerATOr.
Right.
And our mind back then was, customers want their own thing that we build for them, but we'll build it and we'll manage it, right? And we'll help you integrate your app into it. Multi-account AWS environment where there's an account for their app, and we handle the ingress egress traffic, all the firewalling, all the SIM, the SOC, Conmon, all those things, all the way up to DoD IL5, and then we're looking at ICMP,
IL6.
yeah, IL6
Right.
basically, and beyond. So, and then it took off from there, and it's like, well, we could do this as an MSP with XBU40, which is the multi-tenant platform,
Right.
And then get our own ATO on that, and all those things. So
what do you see though? And this is a leading question, or softball, I should say. I mean, what do you see as the hardest part though to integrate those applications? And it's that CI/CD pipeline tends to be the hardest piece, because every customer that we deal with does it slightly different. So there's a lot of customization, even though they might be leveraging the same tools.
Yeah. I mean, a few customers have come at us like, hey, if we just throw the software deployment package and artifacts over to you, could you handle the rest? But by and large, most customers want to manage their environment, their app as another deployment of their app.
Correct.
Right? Like their SREs and stuff like that. And so in that way, it's as much as business as usual as we can get for
Correct.
them. So that's what we strive to do, and we strive to adapt, like look at the tooling that they're using for CI/CD and adapt it for use in federal. Now, in some cases, maybe they're using something that's not authorized. It has to be in boundary, and we're like, you really can't do that.
Right.
You need something inbound. You need a different solution for that. But yeah, we haven't really had a requirement from customers to bring like a CI/CD stack for a particular customer.
Right. Because almost every single time it's somewhat different.
It's
right?
somewhat different.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how many we've got of these yet now anymore. But every customer I think we have is, when I say slightly different, sometimes they're really majorly different, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've had some that come, on GitLab.
Yep.
Others with GitHub Actions. Others, sort of rolling their own.
Right.
And we just see a lot of variability.
Right. So, going back to the whole FedRAMP 20X, I mean, how does this kind of thought process kind of help our customers, right? It is a bit of a paradigm shift, but yet it's not, right? It's just looking at things slightly different. And it's also, kind of trying to eliminate, or as Ethan would say, abolish the screenshot, which is, I'm a big fan of that. So let's abolish those screenshots the easiest way we can. So that FedRAMP 20X, I mean, what does that do for us and with our customers?
Well, I think it's taking the deep implementation work that we've done and deep analysis on, controls, really that we did back before 20X was a thing.
Correct.
Right. And then taking the outcomes of of that tooling and really the processes around them as well. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And the way that we're able to get, to really meet all the requirements in 20X, all the KSIs, with 100% collected evidence, from the start, right, is because we cover all the operational pieces of that too, right?
With the ticketing system, with our Kanban system, inventory and such.
Yeah. Whereas if it's just a tools approach, and then GRC, it can't put all of it together as a story.
That's where the customization comes back, and that's where the whole CI/CD pipeline thing is kind of thought to be a similar kind of perspective.
Exactly.
I truly see that as a kind of a good quick path for customers.
Yeah.
But let me twist it a little bit here. And think about this just for a second. We're in, today is, what is today? October 29th. And we're in the middle
I know where you're going.
We're in the middle of a government shutdown. I think we've been down for 29 days today. So what does that mean? Because on October 15th is when we were supposed to be able to submit our package.
Yep.
And we were able to submit the package based off of finalization of all the KSIs and finalization of all the RFCs. What I've seen up to this point is I think the PMO office is basically saying, we can't do anything for 3 to 4 weeks after the government opens back up. I got a feeling it'd probably be a little longer depending on how long.
Yeah.
How long the closure is.
Well, because I think there's a backlog of other things that are stacking up too.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
So it's not just 20X being pushed off. There's the Red 5 stuff that they still support and manage. Is that backlog is probably piling
it's still
up
there.
Again.
It's not going anywhere, right?
Yep.
Which really leads me to do we want to bring customers on FedRAMP 20X yet? That's a big question, right? I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
Can you do 20X for me? Can you help me move my thing forward with 20X?
So my recommendation, and we're having this conversation a lot with customers coming in, is anytime is a good time to start if you've got agency interest.
Correct.
Right. Mm-hmm. And we can get started and we can work with you in a way that, however the timeline falls into place, right? Because nobody quite knows yet how it's going to fall into place.
Because this is a pilot, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a pilot, so we all need to keep that in mind. This is not an official path yet, but it's getting closer and closer every day. And if we can make this pilot successful,
right?
When I say we, I'm talking about the community here, right?
Yep.
Make it successful, then we can actually, hopefully, the PMO will be able to give us better timelines and whatnot. So
yeah, but really, it's about having that agency interest. It's always a good time to be going after federal sales and building up that capability, because that's really where all this starts, right? It's got to be sales driven, relationship driven, because those are long cycles in federal, right? Mm-hmm. But if you've got a product that's really intriguing for a federal partner, and especially on the DoD side, we're seeing still a lot of activity coming in through DoD.
Correct.
So really, it's I think that because we've leaned into FedRAMP and DoD for so many years, right? And I feel like we're leaning in as much as anybody else out there on 20X,
right?
And helping define sort of this future path. I think as a partner, I know that our customers, I get this feedback a lot, that they're really leaning on us to help them navigate the future over the next year. Mm-hmm. We've got some that even in the environment with the administration changing over and all, they've lost their sponsor in some cases. So, they're looking at us to tell them when the time is right to go 20X.
Correct.
Or to, maybe how to help them find another agency and things like that. So we're helping them keep their powder dry.
Right.
Going back to how we started the podcast.
Exactly. I appreciate that. Yeah. To me, what this is still saying is, FedRAMP Rev 5 is still there, right? It's not going anywhere. It's going to be there for a while, especially on the DoD side, right? On the DoD side, it really is still there, right? So we got to make sure that we stay focused on providing those sets of services, the
Right.
Rev 5 services and now the 20X services. And there's going to be different sets of requirements, from the DoD perspective and then the civil agencies perspective. So I think that the way we developed all of our stuff mainly for Rev 5 initially, and now with the DoD impact layers as well, and now we've added on this whole AuditShield / 20X module onto this, which gives us the dashboard for the KSIs and the trust centers and all these other things that we need to do for
Right.
20X. But it's pretty easily transferred right back over to the Rev 5 perspective or the impact layer perspectives. Pretty easy for us to, if we can convince auditors and AOs not to have 47,000 screenshots, going
Yep.
back to abolish the screenshot perspective.
Well, I mean, I think the fact that it's all in the platform as well.
Right.
So even AOs that are on XB40 and are going to be able to see a package that could be IL4 or it could be FedRAMP High agency. There's nothing wrong with teasing the 20X view of that. Right.
Yep.
Just to get them kind of used to it and like, oh, I can see it from the SAR or I can see it from live in the KSI dashboard.
Correct. Right.
So
now for us, we haven't been able to do that full up translation yet. So we're getting there. We're really focused on driving the 20X requirements and trying to figure out how to make those baselines. So we are kind of somewhat doing separate paths for right now. But yet I think
I was teasing.
I know you were. I know you were. I'm trying to make sure, because what will happen
Set
next?
expectations.
What will happen next? And it will. One of your customers will be like, "Well, Jason, I thought you said I couldn't do these things yet." And I'm like, "Well, not really yet, but real close, right?" So as we get feedback on the pilot and as it becomes successful, we'll start to integrate those 20X concepts into everything else that we do. We're going to have to do that for the vulnerability management piece, because that's changing so everything that's Rev 5 and 20X, we're going to have to get that done on the civil side, and then we're going to have to follow also the similar mechanisms on the DoD side. So we're going to have some split dashboards for the DoD versus the civil side as well.
That was a very unusual role reversal there as well. Like usually you're pushing ahead and I'm like, Gary.
It's only because of, I feel like even we do this ourselves, because we're so passionate about this. We want to start selling it now, right?
Yeah.
We want to get customers to see what we see with the whole kind of innovation moment, knock out the walls and knock out the moats, so we can start to really focus on delivering the services to the federal government, right? So let's get the.
Well, we see the vision. We see the possibilities.
Yes.
So and that's like, oh, we really want to get there.
Right. But you're right. Yeah, I was backtracking a little bit there, but that's okay. I think it's good for us to stay humble and to stay kind of eyes on the prize perspective. We've had that conversation amongst ourselves. Oh gosh, I'd like to do this, and I'd like to do that, and I'd love to do this too.
Yeah.
But as a reminder, we're a bootstrapped company.
Right.
And we're focused on the things that we think is going to have the best impact on our customers. So, but
great conversation.
Absolutely. So with that said, I think we accomplished what we wanted to get accomplished today. Talk about some cannons exploding, some stuff, some walls crumbling, some regimes changing, and then getting to
Powder jokes. That
was awesome, by the way. And really trying to get focused on, how do we deliver these services to our customers? They're coming. They're coming real soon. Let us get through the pilot. Let the PMO be able to review all the things in the pilot, and then move from there. All of our existing Rev 5 customers will get the benefit of everything that we're developing, but slowly integrated into the solutions.
Exactly. It's coming.
Yep. So, what do you say at the end?
The end.
Not exactly.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Behind the Shield podcast.
And it might not be one of us as the host, but you'll always find us behind the shield.
Absolutely.
That's what I always say, but you don't have to say the same thing.